However, I think the way it was done was a little disingenuous, and I think it was incomplete. If we truly are looking to cut budgets, nothing's off the table. So I guess my question would be, when do we get presentations from maybe partnering police departments, maybe other police departments that may want to contract with Crestwood, possibly fire protection districts who may want to come in and take over because it's a great community. That's where we're a little bit incomplete. What we're doing is it seems like we're cherry picking because this is an easy target. And I think if we're going to be genuine about what we do, I think we need to have presentations about all potential cuts. And I know you're all elected, and I know that gets a little nervous around election times, but I think y'all need to be truthful with your constituents and with the citizens of Crestwood. And you may even have to throw something like, oh, I don't know, a bond or a tax increase out there to talk about the services that the citizens are getting. I get that things are tight, but if we're going to start taking a look at ways to cut or ways to provide services, I think you're doing a disservice to the people who elected you if you're not doing everything. Thank you.
And I agree, Mr. Bland, and I can tell you that this board has looked at numerous things, not just police service. We're looking at a lot of things that right now are up in the air, and as you said, there's nothing off the table. Thank you. Anyone else on this side? Yes, sir.
Aaron Carlo, I'm with Southern Armory. I moved to Crestwood for a few reasons. Safety was one of my big keys. Being in my business and having somebody try to come in and rob us, the probability of them coming out alive is very slim. I do not want to have to hold a gun on somebody I just shot for 7 and 10 minutes before St. Louis County would show up. An acquaintance of mine is a combat vet. He was jumped by 5 individuals in unincorporated St. Louis County walking out of his apartment. It was an attempted home invasion is what it was. 30 minutes later, the police showed up from St. Louis County for a priority call. You heard it from Chief St. Louis County Police Chief. The response time, on average, is a minute longer versus our current force. They do have incompatible equipment that will have to be sold. The locks, the Min-14s were actually given to us by Clayton. It cannot be sold to the civilian market. The differences between what St. Louis County carries and what Crestwood carries, there will have to be officers retrained, which translates into dollars. St. Louis County is understaffed. We heard it directly from the Chief of Police from St. Louis County. Part of that, the retention has actually been in the news several times over. Currently, right now, if a contracted city officer calls out, they pull an officer from unincorporated St. Louis County, which hence why in Oakville, which is a safe community, a lot like Crestwood when I was growing up, there was just nothing happening, took 30 minutes for priority call and you answered. That's ridiculous. This is a bedroom community. I think we would all agree with that. So we leave Crestwood and we go work someplace else. If that happens, you, right now, will be at risk once you go out into unincorporated St. Louis County for reduced policing services because they've had to put an officer up here. Crestwood City Police, I don't know if you guys know this, have made the city of Crestwood the top 50 safest places to live. That's something to be proud of. Chief, I thank you, I thank your predecessors, and I thank the men and women of the Crestwood Police Department.
Thank you.
Is it
3 minutes. 3 minutes is all you get.
Is that it, Chief?
Let's just wrap it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Citizens' concerns will be lost in the bureaucracy known as St. Louis County. I promise you. We have a police board here, and your concerns can be brought to them. Other services they're offering, we already get through mutual aid, i.e. the helicopter if needed, which I know plenty of the officers in Crestwood, I've never heard them actually ask for it. K-9 patrol, which I've never heard them ask for. And then losing our dispatcher, which is familiar with the area we're in, I believe would put elderly residents at risk when they say, I'm at the Elks Club, or I'm at the Messianic Hall, or I'm at Harbor Freight, or I'm at Southern Armory. the St. Louis, the centralized dispatchers will not recognize that. Thank you for your time. I hope you make the decision to keep the Crestwood Police intact where they are.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Mike Vincent, 8819 Red Oak Drive. I'd like to use my 2 minutes
3, sir.
to compliment you, Mr. Mayor, and you, each of you members of the board. It took over a year to get the new development approved, and so many of us here in Crestwood absolutely delighted. Thank you for moving this forward and for listening to a wide variety of opinions on the topic throughout many, many months. Just last week, a disgraceful editorial in our community rag criticized this city and you, Mayor. Pretty typical. Since that's what most of the Call's editorials seem to do. Thank you, Mayor Roby, for giving everybody a chance to share their opinions on the development. Thanks to TIF Chairman Trueblood for giving everyone who wanted to speak a chance. And thanks to many of you aldermen, almost all of you, I think, who came to those meetings and public hearings. At your last meeting, apparently Mrs. Duchild complained to the Call that she didn't get to speak as much as she would like to. Her complaint was certainly covered in the Call. And it comes as no surprise that last week's opinion column, again, unfairly blast you, Mr. Mayor. I read that paper and take a deep sigh because it seems to call prints all of Mrs. Duchild's letters. I suggest they simply hire her to their editorial staff.
Sit down.
I'll sit down as soon as I say one more good thing about Crestwood. Anybody who has an opinion can simply call or write their alderman. Or they can talk to the city administrator, or you, Mr. Mayor. I've done this many, many times.
3 minutes.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.
Does anyone on this side care to speak? Sir, please give me your name and address for the record.
Okay, my comment's a little more trivial than previous business. My name is Dan Johnson, and I have owned 26 apartment units in Ward 3 for 25 years down on Heather Drive. And my comment concerns the apartment inspection and reoccupancy permit program that has been in effect for the last 11 years. I emailed a letter to many of you about this and was encouraged to be here tonight. In essence, the current inspection program is unfortunately not working extremely well. It's too expensive for Crestwood, too expensive for landlords, especially compared to most every other city in St. Louis County, and the inspections have become unnecessarily redundant. Until recently, a Crestwood landlord paid $145 per apartment inspection. Other local municipalities have similar programs, but their fees are dramatically less. For comparison, Webster Groves charges $70, Brentwood $45, Kirkwood $40, Afton $40, Marlboro $40, Baldwin $30, Sunset Hills $25, and the list goes on. A typical apartment inspection here amounts to the inspector opening and closing the windows, turning on the furnace, range, and water, checking smoke detectors and electric outlets, and flushing the toilet. That's about it. It takes a grand total of about 10 minutes. Unless, of course, the inspector wants to discuss the highlights of his last fishing trip, then it takes 20. Crestwood recently raised the price of this inspection to $290, a doubling of the already high cost. But neither the length nor the quality of this inspection has changed. Additionally, because these inspections have been required since 2005, and since a permit is only valid for 6 months, as of today, most of my units have been inspected several times each. Whether it's because of the fact that safety codes just don't change quickly, that my units are well maintained, or that I have good quality tenants, my units usually pass inspection with 0 violations. I suppose it should be satisfying to hear the inspector say every time, "You passed inspection. This unit is still 100% fine."
30 seconds.
Except that it cost me $290 for that 10 minutes, and I knew my unit was 100% fine to begin with. This program really could be improved so that going forward, it could work better and more fairly for all. Among others, possible amendments might include: 1, rolling back the fee to at least the original $145. 2, increasing the life of a permit to 18 months or more.
3 minutes.
And perhaps more importantly, and finally, 3, giving some limited discretion to the code enforcement officer to limit excessive re-inspections based upon unit-specific inspection history. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on this side care to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Martha Duchild, 9158 General Grant Lane. First, I'd like to welcome the city administrator back and congratulations to you. I've got a request for the board to consider. On March 22nd, this Board of Aldermen approved a Chapter 353 redevelopment agreement for the Crestwood Mall property. As part of the 353 blighting designation, the area was legally designated as social liability. Social liability, as defined in the state statutes, means having blighting conditions within a redevelopment area that constitute a menace to the public health, safety, morals, or welfare, as the area is predominated by unsanitary or unsafe conditions, deterioration of site improvements, conditions which endanger life or property by fire and other causes. John Brancaglione of PGAD's report on the blighting conditions found within the mall property underscores its danger to the public's health, safety, and welfare. Chief among the concerns are those related to the suppression of fire on the property, as expressed by both Mr. Brancaglione and Fire Chief Menning. Also of concern was the condition of the parking lots and the unsanitary and unsafe conditions of the buildings, which, quote, pose a health and safety hazard for anyone accessing these building areas, whether such access is legal or illegal. If these conditions are present, as the city has established legally, then by hosting a party at a property that has been designated by the city as being a menace to the public health, safety, and welfare, not only poses an unnecessary danger to the public as well as police and fire, but also unnecessarily opens the city up to major liability issues. Either the blighting designation used to provide tax incentives was legitimate and therefore precludes any public use of the property due to safety issues, or the blighting designation was not legitimate and therefore would allow it for public use. The property cannot be two different things at the same time. Either it is safe or it is not. For these reasons, and especially to ensure the safety of our community's children, I am asking that the board request the city to take appropriate steps and get whatever permission is necessary to move the food truck party scheduled for April 16th to the empty parking lot on Boardman's property across the street. The city has every right to host a party, but not in a location that has been legally designated as a risk to the public safety and welfare. Thank you.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Good job.
Anyone else on this side? Yes, ma'am.
Good. Captain Grant, 9716. I thank you guys for trying to cut costs, but most of us
moved here because it was safe and are willing to pay the premium to have it be safe. So I would encourage you guys to really think about cutting costs in an area where you have a lot of young moms that are home with kids, and we appreciate that our fire and police department gets there right away. You know, me closer than anyone, unfortunately, we're right here. The other thing I would like to say, I brought it up to Justin, Alderman Charbonneau, I know that he'll probably address it, but Twin Crest and Greenview, I'm excited about the party. I have no issue with it being at the mall, but I do have issue with extra people trying to park on my little tiny street. So I'm not sure if the police department wants to put out signs, or if there's something, thank you, Mary, for dealing with that. I know you guys will address it, but I don't want to have a bunch of ruckus on my street that whole day, so.
Thank you. Anyone else on this side? Yes, sir. How's things in Cuba, Mr. Miller?
Well, they're pretty good. We had a good music concert and
Good.
President Obama, the Honorable President Obama. And
I just want to know how many of those Cuban cigars you
I've got them, I've got them.
We'll talk later.
Anyway, I've said here many times, blight is in the eyes of the beholder. And this guy, Brock Leone, someone mentioned him. I believe, I don't know, there's no show, I think he found a condom under a step over there or something. And that's why it's socially blighted. We gotta keep those people out of there. Well, Urban Street, if it's blighted, why didn't they put I'm familiar with the Guantanamo fence. It would have been their responsibility. You guys should have paid them to put a fence around there with electricity on top of 220 volts, and not many people would escape or get in there and use these condoms under the steps. But no, blighted. Well, let's keep everybody out of there. Apparently there's an auto show in there too. We shouldn't allow anybody in there. And it's Urban Street's responsibility to put this fence up to keep everybody out of there. If it's so blighted as Brock Leone said. This is baloney. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on this side? Here to speak. See no other hands. Okay, so we will move on from public comment to zoning board report.